So at this point of time, we all said code is good. It's approved by QA. So we merge the branch back to trunk. The problem, real big problem, is that second developer already made a copy prior to changes. So whenever we replace this copy with this copy, now the original, and this is an original, has left hand painted. But when this guy merges back his code, and this is latest code, his code does not have left hand. So when he merges his change and he replaces his copy, you lose previous exactly. Because this guy made a copy of picture and started working prior to change was made. So to avoid a problem with the second merge, we need to tell this developer, for example, every day go here and see if any changes were made. And if any changes were made, please bring me these changes. It means we are synchronizing our branch with the main trunk all the time. And this is a huge problem. Because SVN is so heavy, it copies full branches, and one branch easily could be 100 gigs of space. And let's say if 30 developers at morning when they come, before start working, they say, before going to the kitchen for a coffee, they say, synchronize me, meaning my branch, with trunk. It can take an hour or two. And system itself becomes very slowly. But if you don't do it, you're going to have a problem here. So this way SVN is not used anymore. Well, it is, but in some specific cases. Moreover, if you do not do this synchronization, but make your merge here, system is still smart enough to understand that there is a problem. So system compares list of all your files with what is master copy files in the system. And obviously, in your situation, one of files has been changed after you made the copy, and this file is a left hand. So system does not let you merge, and system returns you a message. Look, after you made a copy, one or more files was updated or changed. Moreover, it tells you file name, and it asks you what do you want to do, and offers you 3 options. Option number 1, you say, I don't care about change, my change is right. If you select this and click a button, proceed, well, there is no button in command line, but logically, you lose this hand. Option 2, it says, ignore my copy of file, leave this copy of the file. In this case, you lose your hand. And logically, you would recommend third option, okay, make them together. Software is not smart enough to do it. But it tells you if both of options are not good for you because you actually manually need to do it, it says cancel my merge. So what you should do is cancel your merge, and developer who painted one hand goes to developer who painted the other hand, they sit down together and incorporate code of one guy into code of the other guy. Sometimes it's a simple process and you don't have to go to another developer, you just take a look at it and you do it. Sometimes it's a very complex thing that requires 2, 3, 5 days of these developers sitting together and merging all their work for 1 week. These where for QA you have risks. Why? You tested this hand and you signed it off, right? Then here you tested this hand and you signed it off. Then something happens to the code beyond your control and you don't even know about it because it's a release management and generates a problem. And you will, fortunately, hopefully, you will catch this problem only at regression test when it's the very final stage, and when you're ready to go to production, you say, oh, we cannot go to production, there is a problem. It's too late to report this problem. We need to go to production. So now we delay release. So these are reasons why I believe that release management should be under QA function, because if something happens here, I am notified immediately and can catch a problem right away instead of waiting for the 2 weeks down the road for a very formal and final step of regression test, and I report the bugs. I still report the bug, but I do it too late. And I want to do it as early as possible. On top of it, how do I know that I need to step in and look at it? So I need to receive a message from Subversion system that at merged time there was a conflict. So if I am notified that a conflict happened and how developers solved this conflict, I can look at it. If I know code and everything, I can say, we look good, or I can say, oops, looks like we need to step in and test quickly something. Make sense to you? Clear?
To answer about that the system can see that old version of file is planned to download. For example, if we take if two developers try to change in the same time, for example, first one try to change the right hand and the second one try to left hand, and the second one take the previous version, if it has in different files, the system can see it. But if all hands are described in one file, for example, in the top and the second, the first one try to change the top file, the second the bottom file. Will the system
Yes.
see?
So whatever, let me rephrase his question to everybody so everybody understands. Let's say that changes to right hand and to left hand made in the same file. So same file is responsible for both hands would be one scenario. And second scenario, if I understand your question correct, would be each hand is represented by a separate file. So in the first scenario, you make two different players make changes to different file, but one of you guys already replaced this file in trunk. So system gives you a conflict saying the file that you changed has been changed already by somebody else after you made the copy. Right? So what do you want to do with this file? Second scenario, you're making changes to file A, which is in charge of left hand. You are making changes to file B, which is responsible for right hand. whenever you updated the main trunk, the file representing left hand has a newer version than your file. In this case, system tells you again, it does not tell you the file you changed has been changed already, but it tells you one of other files has been changed after you made a copy of this file for your work. In second case, where you work with different files and he's a second merger, it's way easier for him because he looks, okay, I did not touch this file, but this file actually represents left hand and I was touching right hand. Okay, obviously his version of file or latest version of file in trunk is better than mine. Ignore my version, accept his version, which is already sitting in a trunk. So case number 2 is easy solvable. Case number 1 is more difficult to solve because both of you guys made changes to the same file. Again, if changes are simple, he opens your version, takes a look at your changes, and I'll show how to do it. Very easy. This is what subversion systems do, and incorporates. He takes your changes, incorporates in his file. Now his file has both of your changes, and he can solve this conflict saying my file is better than previous. Again, QA gets a risk because after we signed code off, after we said this code good, actually code is changed. And QA is not notified. And we are happy, we did a great job, we have no bugs, code goes to production and production is broken. Who is guilty? QA. Is really QA guilty in this case? No. Because it was nothing to do for us. We did not know about it because we were missing in the process of merge. Because the process in the company defined that QA tests here and do regression test or whatever and we are done. So QA finished their job successfully, production is broken, QA is guilty. If QA is guilty, it means that QA is in charge of production quality, not branch quality. Realistically, think for a second. Nobody gives a shit about quality here if production is broken. Our end goal as a QA is to make sure that production is good. But if we are in charge of production quality, we want to be in charge of every single process that is involved for code to get into production. And main process outside of QA development is release management. So logically, if you want me to be responsible for everything, I want to be in charge of every small thing that is in there. If I can't be in charge, how can I guarantee production quality? This is why, to me, release management and QA are together, because what QA finishes, release management, well, developers by using release management break. So this is one of reasons why release management should be under QA umbrella. So it's time for a break. So after break, number 1, we are gonna talk about where is the connection between these 3 environments. Number 1. Number 2, environment and branches. And number 2, as a continuation of this topic, we will be talking about Git. So far we were talking about SVN. Git works a little bit different way. Okay? Questions so far?
So, talked about the terminology, the trunk and the branch. So are the same terminologies used in Git?
Yes and no. Mostly yes, partially no. So this is what I was going to talk after break. Git does not have trunk. Instead of trunk, he has a branch. And it adds a lot of, it simplifies a lot of things, but creates some risks.
There were three options, right? Do you want to merge your code, or do you want to take the other's code,
Or you want to cancel in SVN, correct?
By mistake, either one of the first or second option was chosen. Is there any way to go back, or?
Yes. Well, if you did not merge, so you cancel your merge, right? Even you made a mistake,
Accepting the others?
even you made a mistake by choosing a wrong option, it's what I have not yet said to you. This thing is so freaking smart. It keeps copy of absolutely everything you do. And what you can say to the system, you can tell her, lady, please, I fucked up. Can you take me 2 days back? And it will give you copy that you worked on 2 days back. This system is not only managing pictures. It manages way more things, such as who made a picture, when, all timestamps, what changes were made. So, for example, me as his manager, right, who wants to look at his work, and I know that yesterday he checked out a branch, created a branch, and I want to take a look how much work was done. And I know he's working with a file XYZ that represents left hand. I can tell system, show me the 2 files, which is the same file, but different versions. Version 1 is what he copied, which was original, and version 2 is what currently is in there. Moreover, because this file can be 1,000 lines, I tell, don't show me the whole file, I don't care. Show me the only difference. And it will show me only difference between these 2 files, and this difference would be exactly what he either added or deleted or modified. Moreover, there is a command diff that works in many other tools. It's a famous Unix command, and same command works in SVN. So if you're lately, last years, several companies created interface for SVN, web-based, where instead of going to command line, you click. Very famous thing, lazy people. As a result, nobody remembers really Unix anymore well. So by using web interface, you click on a button called show me the diff. In command line, if you are inside of SVN, you type diff, specify file, and specify what versions you want. Either, for example, 2 timestamps, or provide another parameter you want to choose this file for compensing. And it shows you diff. And I will show you this diff, not with SVN, I'll show you real code, I'll show you diffs, because you need to know you will be doing it, some of you will be using it in companies. Even you don't, or you won't. When on interview you tell about it, people look at you, wow, sounds good. Is it a black box testing or is it a white box testing? Huh? I don't know. Because everybody tells me white box is when you go to code, you read the code, you find a problem and you fix it. This is all definition of white box.
Like you were looking at the code, right?
Right.
It's a white box. In my
Okay.
opinion, you are looking at the
I agree with your opinion. This is why for many years I don't use black box or white box or gray box, and we will be talking about many very technical things you can be doing that I don't know where they land to, white or black. You don't modify code. In some cases you don't even read code, but you do technical things. Are you a QA tester? Probably not. Tester to me is someone who taps on a device and is worth $15 an hour. And there is somebody who says, you know, I checked out a branch, I compiled a build, I brought up a simulator, I took a look at the software, and I tested functionality. Is it a white box? Of course not. But they dealt with code, they compiled a build, they used special compilers, simulators. They are not white box, but they are not black box clickers either. And when I hear things like that, you know, my hairs are red. I love it. I think this person is exactly what I need for my company. Because this is what we do. Even I don't do it, but I listen to this person, I think, wow, what he says is interesting, sounds good. So he knows many interesting things. You know what? I need to hire him. And we'll sit down and talk. And maybe I'll use some of his experience for us. Or a different scenario, I don't need his experience, but he is technically experienced with something, and I have something different, no, a little bit similar, I think, oh, it will be easy for him to pick up our strategy or approach or our policies. He's good. This is why I think it's important to you. Break. Let's do a short break. So before I start talking about this, after I made the statement that I don't like test cases and we don't do it, I've received several questions. What do you do? How can you survive? And there was a discussion about it already. I'll get back to it when we finish as much as I can about what I was planning to tell you. Because the different approach in different QA and a statement about test, especially statement about test cases, is a very small thing from QA approach that what can be different in QA, including test cases. So, coming back to this. So, remember, these are copies of the picture that we are making changes, right? And there is a tool called SVN or Git or Perforce or anything else that keeps track, thank you, keeps track of all your copies. So how does it happen in real life? Think about Git as a library. But library, I mean books library, not software library. Moreover, think about it logically as a one wall with a huge shelf on it with bunch of books. Each book is a copy of this picture. Now you need to read this book, or you need to make changes to this book, or you need to throw away this book as old and not needed. What happens? You step into this small room. You pull a bag out of your shelf. You come to a reading room where there is a desk, there is a chair, there is a light, there is a glasses you need to read. So there is a bunch of things that you need to have to start reading this book or to start editing this book. You cannot do any changes to this book while it's closed, sitting on a shelf under pressure of other books. The point I'm trying to make is to read, QA read, developers write to this book, you need to take book out of shelf. Take it to an environment that will let you make changes. In your case, environment would be number one, reading room, number two, light. You can't read in dark. It's probably uncomfortable to read by standing, so you would definitely would like to see it. So you need a desk, table, you need a chair, You need a pencil to make comments, etc. All these things are tools that help you to do your job successfully. But again, the main point is you have to take the book out of shelf. Make some changes to it, right? Make changes to text on page 27 and 127. Then put back as a developer. And then you tell QA, look, in this book, which is on shelf 3, row 7, book number 127, on page 27 of this book, I've made changes. Now, you remember I was saying dev QA. Now QA have to come to this shelf, to this library, pull the book out by having coordinates where the book is, open it up in the reading room and start reading. And either like or not like what is in there. So when I was drawing this picture with dev QA, I was not technically accurate. Because you are not doing nothing to branch that sits in Git. Git keeps copy of all your text files that representing your software. It's not executable environment. It's just think as of, it is a storage. So you need to take this book into executable environment to do something with it, to write or to read. QA and dev do exactly the same things. By taking this book out to the reading room, they perform different actions. Dev write, QA people read. So with this picture that was here, dev, QA, dev, QA, there are a bunch of actions was happening that are part of release management. Dev created a book, first off, made a copy, right? Pulled it out into their executable environment, have their tools that will let them, their libraries, and I'm talking code libraries, that will let them to write their code. They finished their code, they put the book back into storage, and now they tell, okay, QA guy, I'm ready for you. Now QA guy comes, grabs this book, drops it into executable environment where this book gets alive, which is in our case maybe QA environment, makes their read, whatever, perform their function, and get feedback back to developer. They don't have to put the book back theoretically because they did not make changes to it. Because what I did not tell you, and I did not do it in a purpose, whenever the Git as a shelf with books is created the way when you pull a book from a shelf to take to reading room, the book is actually staying here. So it's kind of, you're making another copy. So when you pull, system tells you, I don't want you to pull the book you have. Here is the same book to you. And immediately kinds of logically, not technically, logically creates a copy. So whatever books are in the reading room and there are 100 people are sitting with these books, 50 developers, 50 QAs, and they all deal with different books. They did not physically take out 100 books from a shelf. System automatically created copies of these books to them. And shelf is still full. So if a QA pulled the book, they only read. Why do they want to return this book? No need, the book is there. If a developer pulled a book and they made changes, they wrote something there. This is a case when they put the book back, the shelf says, okay, developer XYZ pulled book out on May 1st, returned on May 2nd, And changes he or she made was on page 27, line 3, on page 30, line 10, etc. So this library immediately compares different versions of the book you started working with and you put it back. This is still nothing to do with merging. Each book is a branch. So the goal is, again, Git, SVN, Perforce, or any other system is a kind of storage / archiving, but way more active. And it's not an executable environment. The code in Git itself never is going to work. It does not have all needed tools to become working or become executable. So this book should be pulled, this code should be pulled into development environment and later on into QA environment or later on to production environment, etc. So whenever I say this, it's not accurate in terms that there is bunch of actions happen when I say, okay, dev do something, then QA people do something, right? This is a logical growth of your branch, very schematic, but not how it happens in real life. So as soon as I take a package of code, right, finished by developer, drop it into QA environment, as a release manager, I tell QA, okay, I pulled this book into reading room, it should have this and this and these changes, please test them. A lot of movements, it's a very important thing. However, everybody, professional, QA, devs, when you talk in the company, they skip all these steps. And again, all the time you will hear from a QA, okay, I tested this functionality on a branch ABC. You cannot test nothing on a branch. What it really means is that this branch as a book was checked out or was pulled. There is a command in Git called pull, meaning checking out this package of code, which is a set of readable files, not executable files, was dropped into special environment that must be an executable environment, and your program starts working. This is how development life cycle works. Developers do something, when they finish, they tell QA do something, and the release manager, regardless of who is in charge of this function, takes these books out, puts them back, etc. Git has two main commands, pull and push. Pull, take out, check out, push, check back in. Because all these tools have been created by human being, right? So it would make sense to apply normal human logics into commands. SVN has commands check in and check out. Both of them have obviously mostly important commands as a merge, and there is another interesting thing called commit. Now, why do I tell all this shit to you? Why do you need to know this? It's a really great question. You don't. But if you want to be different, if you want to work in an, let's say, exciting startup environment, this knowledge is very much is a must for you. If you are working for Bank of America or Kaiser, this knowledge is irrelevant to your function. Because your function is here. That's all. Why in startup environment you do need, and in a large corporate environment you don't?
Workforce is limited in startup, it's fast moving, agile, you don't have like responsibilities to flow from one person to another.
How to translate it in a logical example?
You own the entire process.
Not exactly. Okay. So remember our picture when he was painting a left hand, right? Hand has, I hope 5, right? I did not drink yet. 5 fingers. So after he painted 5 fingers, he gives you a copy and tells, check it out. And it takes him 1 day to paint a finger. So now we together should sit 5 days and wait for him to finish 5 fingers. Why can't I come on day 2 and tell him, you finished first finger, you start painting second finger, but on day 2 of your work, I start testing your first finger. Not even the hand is ready. By day 5, 4 fingers of 5 are tested. If it takes him a day to paint a finger, and it takes me a day to test a finger, 5 days of his work assume 5 days of my work. If I come to him and say, let me help you and start testing it early, he finishes his last finger on Friday, I will take a testing for it on Monday, and then I will take 1 more day to test all 5 fingers together. So my approach significantly saves time, because we overlap, let's say, 3/4. And if I come to him and say, let's do it, he says, sure, great idea, do it. Uh-oh. Do it means execute this idea. How can I do it if I don't know this? Because what I do in this case, I go to Git, I take his branch, I take this book that has only 1 finger, and I do it myself. I check it out to a reading room where I start doing things. You would say, okay, let's have a separate release management guy who will do it. Perfect. But I have 20 developers, I have 30 different fingers at all different times. So quickly communicating with developer on a daily basis, I know his progress on feature development. And my job in this case is to help him to give me on day 5 the hand with already no bugs. So I don't report missing pinky on the 5th day of 2nd week. So it means if I want to do it, I have to do it myself. And I start working with him, he's not happy at the beginning. After couple, 3-5 iterations, he sees dramatic changes, meaning here, when both of us are ready, instead of 2 weeks, now it takes only 6 or 7 working days, so 30-40% saving, and quality of this is way better. So it means I start testing at early stage. When you propose something like that for a company you're working with, you don't tell, I start testing at early stage. What you do tell is, I start supporting developers at early stage. Because when you sell any business process, your goal is to highlight benefits of this process to another party. If you tell them, I will start testing at early stage, they don't give a shit about it. They don't care. It's not in their favor or not. They don't care because their job is to paint a hand in 5 days. And then you start testing, reporting bugs, etc. So you have to sell them benefits. And benefit here is definitely I start supporting or I support devs at early stage, and as a result we produce cleaner code and quicker. So we both finished here. Now it's a developer's job to manage. As a manager of the tool, I get a notification that something happened here, a conflict. You remember different files, different versions at different times. What do? Do you think I run to developer and say, hey John, you fucked up, there is a problem? No, you don't. It's a wrong approach. What you do is you take a piece of paper and write it for yourself. Okay, in this file, I had a conflict and I have doubts that conflict was solved properly. As soon as this happens, what can you do? Check it out as a book. And take a look at just one small specific area which represents the file that there was a conflict with. And you immediately see that everything works good, so the conflict was solved properly, or there is a problem. Not here, when you do regression test, final regression test, but right here. And it takes you only 10 minutes. You start checkout process, you go have your coffee, you have your cigarette, you come back, you have package on your machine, you compile it, depends on whatever you do. Boom, you have your version. You quickly test only one small thing. If there is a problem, you immediately report it. So he did check it in at 10 at morning, at 11 at morning you report a problem with this check-in. It will take him another 20 minutes to fix it, to solve it. The problem is fixed quickly. The problem for QA is it is not visible. And QA need visibility. Nobody sees, nobody really knows, right? It's a direct work between you and developer. So your boss, and I have boss as well, everybody has a boss, right? My boss does not know what I do. My boss does not see my small actions that make software cleaner, cheaper, and better. How can my manager know that I do a good job? No? I'll explain why.
Tested at this level to find out the result.
They don't know on what level I'm testing. They don't care. They don't care about prevention. What they care about production. So there were situations when I joined the company when QA organization did exist. But it was not performing right. So it was bulky, large QA organization, a lot of people, a lot of work. However, production quality was horrible. Releases were always delayed because of QA. Obviously, there were problems in the QA organization. Either bad processes, right? So people did not do what they supposed to do and were doing something else. For example, they were spending 3 months writing test cases and only 3 days for testing. Obviously, doesn't sound right. Right? So, goal for me was to change it, to improve it. And my question to my boss was, how are you going to measure my success? And he says, I don't know, you tell me. And I tell him, okay, we are in business, and I'm a businessman. This is what I'm proposing. 6 months down the road, number of production bugs drops 50%. Number one. Number two, you have QA team of 12, I'll make it QA team of 7. I save you money on 5 salaries. Then, I guarantee you that what today takes you 4 weeks to release, I will be successfully releasing in 2 weeks. Give me 12 months to implement this, but if I do, give me a bonus. If I don't, fire me. They do agree. Obviously, to come up with such plan, when I come up with the timing for a plan, I need already to know what is better and how much time it can take. So I don't come up with a proposal like this on day 2. But one of things I would love to implement is when you start testing every of his fingers. There is not only speed, there is not only quality, there is another very important thing that people don't think about, but is a very major attribute for success, your relationship. That builds up a right company culture, which you don't give a shit about now at this time, and I do, because with the right company culture your performance is good. Again, I'm a businessman. If I pay you a salary, I want you to perform like a dog. I don't want you to sit and do nothing. Well, Bank of America does. So in this case, if over time and you work together all the time, it creates a right influence between QA and development. Because generally speaking, for majority of companies, it's a big problem, and as a result, they have low performance. Developers don't like QA, obviously. Why would they? If I put myself into development shoes and I'm a developer, I write a code, I think I'm a genius, right? And I think I write a perfect code, and then some jerk who even does not know code comes after me and reports really stupid bugs. Would you like this person? Of course not. Would you? Probably not. Right? And because of this, it becomes a problem. Number one, you spend extra time taking an extra look at your code. Instead, she can do it. And you spend time doing something else. Right? But you don't want her because she criticizes you. And you don't want her to criticize. So number one, extra time for you. Extra time is extra money. Extra money is extra effort. Extra effort is missing feature, extra feature implemented to production that can bring new revenue. So it's a loss of opportunity. At the same time, you won't like him. Why? You report a bug, you show it to him, he says, what a bug, I can't reproduce it. Show me again. And you start pulling, playing your bug report is a ball. You send the ball to him saying it's reproducible. He sends it back to you saying it's not reproducible. You're trying on your computer or environment. Again, it's working. You say, are you stupid? It is reproducible. Do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. 2 days later, he writes again to you, no, I can't reproduce it. How much time did you lose? You have a lot of work on your plate. Instead, you are playing ball for one bug. Would you like him? No. Of course. But if you two sit together and he tells you, I just finished first finger, can you take a quick look at it? Because he treats you as a helper, not as a critic. You don't play ball. He saves my time, he's in a good mood. you save time, you're in a good mood. Who wins? Me, company. So one of very important things of such approach is to put them together. Not to have dev and QA organizations compete with each other and be on a different sides of a river. If they're competing who is better, and they're on a different sides of the river, it's a huge problem for the company, for performance. Well, for a company which has a quick and aggressive development approach. It must be like that for Bank of America. Not for startup, not for a small or medium-sized company where speed of delivery without jeopardizing quality is the goal. This is not easy measurable in terms of time saving when you sit together, but over time gives you enormous benefits. Why do you need to know this? You, as a QA engineer who starts working for a company, you know, if your QA manager is not sharp or old school, or they don't simply care, you just directly come to developer and say, look, we have a policy that I have to wait for 5 days. Can I help you? Is it okay if I'll take your branch and start testing one finger? You say, I don't care. And you say, let's try it. Let's see after 1 week or 2 weeks. Is it going to be good? Are we going to have some benefits of it or not? 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, down the road, you both see benefits. Then later on, these can be adopted by company. You win, you're a hero. You get salary increase, you become a team lead. It benefits you, not only company. And obviously you should think about your first self, then about company, right?
Yeah, I have a question. How much flexibility we have in pulling out the branches for QA testing? Like
Depends on a company. In Bank of America, you never will even know where their code is. In a small startup, you can get full read or even write access to Git. It's all based on a company culture. It is all based on a company policy. It is all based on company procedures. If procedures are not supporting you well, you can come to your manager and request. And they will ask you, why do you need access to Git? And you will tell, you know what? I want to check his code on day 2 and start testing first finger. And give all shit I just sold you, right? We are saving time, etc., etc. There are 2 outcomes of this action. Either, and we discussed it with somebody while break, you either are promoted and get a bonus, or you're fired. And you're fired because manager sees you as a smart person, and it's a threat to manager that eventually in a couple of years you replace it. This happens in Bank of America. This most often does not happen in startups. In startups, they do appreciate any initiatives that improve things. The more you know, the better ideas about improving workflows or processes you bring up, the more benefits company gets and you get, and more appreciated you are. And it does not have to be in the form of a bonus with a dollar sign. This is why in most companies I used to work for, I play one of major roles. Because all the time I come up with something new. And again, there are 2 ways of coming up with new ideas. Either criticizing them, saying, oh guys, you are not doing something right. Or proposing something by selling benefits. And in many cases, engineering manager is my enemy. Because they take me as a threat. Because he starts thinking that I'm gonna criticize the whole engineering flow. So it's a political job, it's psychological job to sell it the right way. Eventually, you become best friends. At the beginning, it's difficult. But you either are a fighter on a field, you step on this field to fight and win, or you don't go to a front line. You sit somewhere there, you get something, there is no your inputs, there is no outcomes of your inputs, you get a salary, you are happy. This is your Bank of America, Kaiser. There is a lot of people who choose this path because everything is based on your personality. Some people are fighters and it is important to them. Some people are not. There is nothing bad about it. There is nothing bad if you go to work for Bank of America, work 8 to 5, 3 months, you write test cases, which has no benefits to me, but this is what Bank of America wants you to do. And you don't care about it. You come home, you forget about them, right? Well, generally speaking, in this country, you get paid for what you offer. If you work for a startup, you number one, get better salary. Number two, you work twice hard. There is no 8 to 5. There is usually 24/7. You can get a call at 3 in the morning that I was receiving for many years. But then, if you are successful and company takes off and you see results of your inputs, it's visible and makes you happy. If company takes on, you can gain some really good money on a stock option. With Bank of America, you don't have such option. I mean, you get their stocks, 3.5 stocks, right? That grows $3 a year. Make sense? Again, different people choose different approach, different path. I'm not saying that Bank of America waterfall approach is bad. No. That approach supports their business model. For aggressively growing, rapidly growing with a huge pace startups, there is a different approach and there will be different expectations about what you do. And ask yourself, are you ready to do it? Do you want to do it? Because if you don't and you step on that field, you fail. And the most important is not that you will be fired, but you fail in your mind. Because you think, shit, I spent so much time, energy, money to go to this QA field, and I failed on my first job. It's not about QA. It's about asking yourself a question, what you want to do or what you think will be right for you to do. And execute this. This is why I recommend to all interns that I used to work with, I tell them, guys, when you send resumes, look at what you want. And I understand that for all of you, the goal is, to catch the very first offer, because who knows when there will be another call. No, don't do that. And don't lie to yourself that whoever called me is the only opportunity. The more you are selective, the more usually opportunities you get. You have to be strong. You have to, mostly important, you have to believe in yourself. Because if you do not believe in yourself that you are strong, you can do it, then you get whatever first call and think it's end of your life. Usually it becomes end of your life. It's all based on you. It's all based on your vision. It is all based on your self-confidence. It is all based on your message to yourself. I can do it. I'm not afraid. If you do this, I guarantee you will be successful. Some of you with Bank of America, some of you with a crazy startup. Coming here. We covered this. Git, difference between Git and SVN. We just spoke that SVN has a trunk and branches. And they are different with different privileges and different responsibilities. One of limitations in SVN is you cannot release from a trunk. Theoretically speaking, trunk and any branch are same copies of your code package with some minor differences what developers did in last day, 2, 3, whatever, right? So theoretically speaking, there should be no difference between this copy and this copy. But not letting this copy being released to production, you protect production from making mistakes. Because you never, in SVN, you never test here. You always test here. So you always test branch and you never test trunk. Ideally speaking, trunk should be clean because you merge a clean code. And let's assume you solve conflicts properly. However, still, trunk has never been tested. This is why when this tool was created, there was a limitation. You cannot release trunk, which is a great approach preventing from mistakes. But because of crazy synchronizations and everything else, it becomes bulky and heavy and not really usable for an aggressive development approach. It's slow. These were Git or other modern tools come in place. Number one, Git has no difference between trunk and branch. All of them are exactly the same, with the same privileges and same responsibilities. Anything can be released to anything. It obviously creates some risks, right? What if, as a release manager, I make a mistake and release to production a wrong branch? Can I do it? Very much so. SVN would never let me do this. So, to prevent from mistakes happening like what I just mentioned, when you set up a Git or any other modern system, you build a policy. You build a process how this tool is going to be used. So there, you obviously start with only one copy, right? Let's say this is a copy that you bring to Photoshop, black-white copy, asking to paint it. Or it starts from very scratch, from zero and grows, right? So if there is a copy already, this is a branch, not trunk. Let's call this branch main. Main is not used. I specially propose this. I explain why later. Main. So every developer now makes a copy from this branch to perform their function, and they push it back when they're finished. Exactly same approach. No difference. At the same time, when we set everything up, we create another branch that we, let's call it release branch. So from the very beginning, we create two parallel things. There will be more than two. Because you can do whatever you want. You can put in parallel 127 copies if you wish. Who cares? Whatever is convenient to you, whatever supports your effort, right? So now developers and QA together work here on the branches, they merge all branches. At one point of time we say, okay, you finished left hand, it's tested. You finished right hand, it's tested. You finished the foot, it's tested, and it sits all right here. They merged back, they solved conflicts, we discussed it. Now what we do, we push or pull, in this case what we do? Yeah, we pull. We take copy of this and drop it somewhere else. So we pull, we check out this branch and drop it into release branch. And now we say we declare this as a release candidate. Remember, we are still sitting in a shell with all books. It's still copies, it's still text files that are not executable, they are completely dead. But there is a separate shell called release shell. Now we take this code out to, let's say, QA environment or staging environment, doesn't matter. We do final test, we do final regression, because so far we tested separately hands, feet, other parts of body, but we did not test the full body. So now, on the release branch, we test full body, which is regression test. We can have integration test, bunch of different tests. And we are good, and we have no bugs. We say, at this point, we have a good and clean code that can be released to production. And we release it to production. And we keep going, right? At that time, when we declared this code, there is a bunch of other changes already. There is another development process, there is another cycle, there is another release coming. So we released it to production, and because we are doing small incremental releases, and we have only 2 weeks for release, QA obviously cannot do everything in 2 weeks, right? So we assume we take some risks, and we don't test something, and something can go wrong. So we released a package, and it has bugs in production, it's bad. What do? We have to fix it. How do we fix these bugs? There are generally speaking, two ways of fixing them. Either fix a bug in production, and we don't know, or fix bug somewhere else and push to production. Very good approach. The problem is we don't know how much time it can take. If it takes 30 minutes, great. What if it is going to take you 2 hours? So we are going to have bad code in production for 2 hours, preventing users to do their actions and company make money. We don't have these 2 hours. We have to solve the problem in 5 minutes. What do?
Go to the one release prior to it?
Revert back to back.
Exactly. Yes. There is a process called rollback. And this process can be, it's a wild thing. One of possibilities, not always executable, one of possibilities is redeploy previous release. Simply on top of this. Bug goes away. It's not always possible, because what if your release requires database changes? So now you have a new database schema against all code. It's not necessarily compatible. In this case, if you cannot simply replace latest version with the previous version, then you look at a real rollback. You look at the real possibility of how quickly you can fix this bug. There is a term called hotfix that comes in mind. We'll get to that. Oh, shit. So, after we release to production, and let's say it's a good release, but we don't know yet, it could be a bad release, it would be nice if somewhere separately, just for easy life, in our library, in our shelf, you remember? In our shelf system, we create one row where we will store only books that went to production. And we'll call them production books. So let's say we put a code to production and it turns out to be bad. We don't need time to figure out where is the previous production version. We have a book of previous production. We simply take a book from this very special row and release it, if it's releasable. Very special row, extra row is what? Another branch. Here we go. Let's call it prod branch. So, after we release package to production, and we know it's there, we put it here. As a copy of a book, as a copy of production. So generally speaking, if we do release to production, let's say every 2 weeks, right? And everything is good, here we get a new book once in 2 weeks. Here, you can have 10 books a day, right? Here, you can have 5 release candidates prior to one is clean and goes to production. Point. During this 2 weeks period, there is most likely just one copy, bunch of copies, even more copies here. Now, we just spoke about situation when you just released a bad code to production and you don't have an option of rebuilding previous version back. And you have to fix the problem right away. So, what is a development process? Developer takes code from a branch, makes a copy, creates his branch to fix this bug, right? Fixes it, gives to QA, and then somehow we release it. So, there is bunch of changes already to main branch. There were 2 release candidates, other, going forward. By time, when in production we declare an emergency and we need a fix. Oh, I put it in a branch. In a real production, I'm sorry. In a real production. So we need to have a branch that represents a copy of production, right? There's a bunch of branches, but none of them is closed because we released 2 weeks ago. During this time we added so much code. All branches are different. This is why we have this branch. And we know that what we took, what we put there 2 weeks ago is exactly in production. So now we create a branch out of this branch because it represents exactly the version that is in production. Does it make sense? Are you all clear about it? Because none of other branches represents, because they're way ahead. You still can cut, all changes because you can tell, generate me a branch that was done on whatever day. And system will regenerate you a branch. Why would you spend time doing this? If you are an emergency, you have a bad production, you need to fix something quickly. You create a branch of your copy of production. And this branch is called hot fix branch.
So how does the hotfix branch come back to the main?
We'll get there. Be patient. So dev do something. You remember our picture? QA do something. Dev do something. QA. We declare it's good. Everything is good. We release it to production, and we have a rule. Whatever we release to production, we push back to branch we called copy of production. So we push it back here. So we get practically a new copy of production that is different from previous one by one file, but by one fix. But going to your question, we have a serious problem because every other branch went ahead like 2 weeks. And the file you modified here in production is different from this. This is old version of this file that has a bug, and here you have a new version of the bug. So if you release, you will replace good bug, a good file, excuse me, with a bad file because you did a separate process here. Make sense? Is everyone with me? Hello? Good. So, when you do a hot fix branch, you create a policy, and all policies are created by human. And the policy is, as soon as you do this, you also need to push your change to everything else. So every other branch gets a change that you just implemented to production. And obviously you don't do it manually. You create a simple shell script, you just execute it, it updates everything. Human has to do it. If human doesn't remember to do it, we create a problem with next release. Who is responsible for this? QA. We don't care who does all these things. The bug we just fixed here, the next release is gonna show up again. Who will be guilty? This is another point proving that a release management function should be under QA.
Is there any quality audit process also, like internal or external?
What do you mean?
For example, I have worked in India. So they had quality audits coming from outside, like ISO 2001 and all. So is there any quality processes set
Yes.
for this?
Yes, bunch of them. But they are not a law. You don't have to follow them. There is 8001, 8002, 8004 that define what people who created them think is a good quality. What you think is a good quality of product and what I think is a good quality of product could be way different. Your vision could be right, my wrong. In this case, if we are both businessmen, you win, I lose. Right? But if my goal is to release a product as soon as possible with known, let's say known bugs, it will not follow 801 standard. Do I give a shit about it? I don't. I pay for this. I'm a businessman. I'm an investor. I want to get money back on my investment. I don't even want to know what this 801 is. I know you don't agree with me and you think I'm crazy and I'm tough, etc. Okay, your lovely product that I'm still learning, Microsoft. I hate it. I don't know it. Really, I'm sorry. All of you use Microsoft. Did any one of you see bugs in Microsoft? In any of Microsoft products? There are millions of them. Millions. And some of them are very serious functional bugs. Very serious functional bugs that affect performance of your work. So what? Does it mean if you hit such bug, you drop Microsoft product and stop using it? No. Even serious bug, functional bug. What does it mean? It means that number of bugs in production and quality of production itself should meet company expectations in terms of their business model. I used to work for a genetic company, medical company, with a crazy software, where one bug could be human life. We had 0 bugs policy, very expensive policy. But this was the only policy supporting company business model. At the same time, later on, I worked for a gaming company where we did 3-5 releases a day, and I was, as a release manager, I was signing off hundreds of bugs to go to production. Why? Because I did not care about these bugs. I did analyze all of them before going to production to make sure that these bugs do not affect user experience and monetization. If these bugs don't, we don't care fixing them. As long as it supports our business model. And the business model was make money, 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 money. So, coming back to your question, based on your company model, there are different levels of product quality. And you would be a good QA engineer if you understand company business model first. Because understanding company business model helps you to propose a right level of quality. Meaning, what do you think is a low priority bug and what you think is a high priority bug? It's a result of your analysis of what can go to production unfixed and what cannot. And what is this? This is the only thing you do in your QA function. This is what I told you when we started today, and I told you your job is only to set right expectation. And if you do set right expectations about quality product aligned with the business model, you win. If not, you lose. Let's say you are too tough, you push everybody to fix every bug, and it takes long time, and one time somebody tells, why do we want to fix all these bugs? They don't affect production at all. Nobody says about good quality or bad quality in this case. They say QA don't do a good job, they over push. So what you do is you analyze business model and you start setting right expectations. And you will ask me, okay, I'm just a QA engineer. How do I set expectations? How am I involved in this process? Simple. When you create a bug, especially in a small company, you create a priority for this bug, not severity, priority. Priority means when do you think this bug should be fixed? If you mark it as a high priority, it means that you think that this bug cannot go to production. Or you make a bug, let's say low priority, and there is obviously something in between and questionable cases. If you mark a bug low priority, it means you, as a judge in this case, are okay to release this bug to production. So you set expectations to your management that these bugs are low and can pop up in production. So this is your way of setting expectations. Nobody cares how good or bad production quality is if expectations set and did not meet. Everybody cares about setting right expectations and meeting them. Make sense? I know it does not. You'll feel it. Whoever will feel it in their life will win. Next thing. What is your job? Okay, we just agreed that your job is about setting right expectations. In real life, what your job is, what you do?
Getting involved in each and every stage of
Great answer, fantastic answer. If I interview you and you answer this, which is the right answer, you're a loser. You won't get an offer. Because you make a simple thing way more complicated. What is your job? The logical answer would be you're testing, right? You're testing. And you're testing, right, there should be requirements, blah, 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 whatever. What is the final quality software?
So quality product.
Bullshit, we just agreed there is no product with no bugs. Your job is don't make a simple case complicated. Your job is to compare
They expect to have.
expected result with actual result. It either passes, it means good quality, or it fails, means you create a bug and it either gets fixed or released to production, doesn't matter. So what do you do at the end of the day? You compare expected result with actual result. Nothing else. Nothing else, guys. Comparing expected result with actual result does not influence production quality. What influences production quality is a decision to fix this bug or not. In many cases, you don't even make this decision, so you don't influence production quality. So your job in this case is not to improve production quality. Your job is to find bugs, which is not necessarily improving production quality. What also means that your job is to compare expected result with actual result.
We have to check also if the requirements meet the business needs.
It means expected result. If you don't have expected result, you cannot do your job. So if expected result does not exist, you should look for it. You should talk to product manager, developer, your manager, whoever, doesn't matter. You need to find, you need to get expected result. You will be successful. Because you can build your expected result based on your common sense, right? If there is a button that has a label save, most likely it should save, right? But once in a while, your assumptions would be or will be wrong and will have bad results. Because you will miss a bad bug in production because based on common sense, this should be working this way. However, it actually was created specifically to work a different way. So it's up to you how much, how deep, and how often you will use your common sense as a judgment tool for setting an expected result. Because especially in startup environments, there is no time, there is no people, there is no resources to define every single expected result for you. So you're in a tough spot. You have to find the right balance between how many wrong assumptions you will make against how many good assumptions you'll make and save tons of your time and product management and development time or talking about it. Up to you. And this balance is different for every company. But this is something you will need to learn. This is something based on a company culture, based on a business model. This is something you cannot learn in this school, in college, or anywhere else. This is partially psychological life experience that you will get working for a company that can badly or in a very good way influence your job. So your job is not only to test. but learn many things that can influence or change your job effort, because based on it, you either can succeed or you'll fail. Regardless of how good QA you are, how much technical knowledge you are, and you know Java code, you can write whatever you want, you're an automation guy, etc. Make sense? Did I scare you? No? Shit, I did plan to scare you. We didn't actually finish this. So, we named this main. We named this copy of production. So, there are few tags, specific tags in Git that help you to define your flow. One of flows we just defined, right? This is how we are gonna work, and it could be different. If we put these special tags on this, for example, let's say 3 branches, Git can help us with something. In most cases, in my life, what I've seen with companies, this main branch is called either dev or develop. So everybody starts with a dev branch. Trunk, remember, trunk is your dev branch. You pull from dev, you create your own branch as a developer, and it can be either feature branch, which means you are creating a feature or a piece of functionality on this branch, and usually this takes more than 2 hours. It takes a number of days. So usually life of a feature branch is number of days. And in most cases you create another branch to quickly fix a bug. So this branch would be bug fix branch. The difference between bug fix branch and feature branch is only length of their life. Nothing else. As a QA or anybody else, when you go to Git by branch name, you can quickly make an assumption if this branch is a feature or bug fix. So everybody starts working from dev, and they end up working in dev. Then release branch is a release branch. Then this branch in the flow we just proposed is usually named master. The reason being, it stores master copies. It stores copies you only really care about, which is production copies. This is one of mostly popular Git or any other repository workflows that is used. So you have dev, main branch you start off, feature, bug fix, release, master, hotfix. You don't have to name these branches this way. You can name it whatever you want. It does not change anything. It's only a label on a book. However, if you all agree on a naming convention, everybody who is not directly involved in the process understands what is going on. This flow is again mostly popular. It is called a lazy river flow. The reason being is your master branch plays a role of lazy river. It's not really active. In most cases you don't do anything on this branch. You just collect copies of your production releases, and once in a while you do a hotfix. So it's really not used as a branch, right? Because in most cases you either develop code on a branch if you just created it, or you use another branch, let's say dev, to pull to create a branch. Nothing like that happens to this branch. So one of branches realistically is almost dead. And you obviously can't survive without it, because you always can recreate any of your branches in Git. But remember, having no time to work on recreation, we created this. This is why this flow is called lazy river flow. You could use master as your dev. It gives you a lot of extra interesting advantages, but requires extra maintenance. In most cases, when you join the company, this flow is already created. And most likely it will be this flow, because this is mostly common and mostly useful way for developers to manage their code. And when they did set it up, they did not think about QA. They did not give a shit that somebody else, turns out, is going to use it. In this case, you will have to live with this. There will be a rare case when you'll convince them to change to a different flow. It did happen a couple of times. At the same time, they are smart people. They won't create a stupid flow, right? They will create a flow that is convenient to them. This is why I did go just through one flow. I did not talk about crazy, interesting advantages about having master branch in a different position. It creates risks, but it gives you some benefits. Questions so far? Okay, so unfortunately we definitely did not cover a bunch of things, including I was planning to show you Git and diff and real Java code, because it's 5 minutes to 2, and we also skipped one short break, and I apologize, I did not give you an opportunity to breathe. So we have 5 minutes. Do you have any questions for me so far?
You said you don't like test cases. What was your approach?
Does everybody agree if I spent last 5 minutes with test case approach?
No, your way of approach that.
Right, but I mean on this topic. Or there is something else you would like me to talk about? Okay. It's a great question. It's definitely more than 5 minutes. I'll try to do my best. Let's all together think about what a test case is. What is that? Come on, you all learned it in school. You should know.
Comparing the actual to the expected value.
Test case does not compare nothing.
I mean,
Human compares by using test case.
It's a set of instructions.
Set of instructions. Okay, I like that. So it's set of instructions what to do. What is instructions?
the actions that the steps.
Actual behavior and expected one.
You are all right. May I phrase the instruction is actually a knowledge about what needs to be done. Right? Why do you write a test case? Because later on, in 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road, or 1 week, you will be testing this piece of functionality again and again and again, let's say as a part of your regression test, so you don't need to think about it anymore, and you obviously don't remember it anymore, but here it is. It's written, it's ready for execution. Or another example would be that you hire temporary contractors to help you with release, you provide them with test cases, they run them, and they execute them. If you have scenarios like that, I agree, test cases are needed. But think for a second how much time your test cases take to write, to correct, and regardless of how good they are, there will be bunch of missing test cases. There will be your simple mistakes. As a human being, everybody makes mistakes. If a human being won't make mistakes, QA won't exist. So let's thank the Mother Nature that it created human to make mistakes. And you're part of it, so you make mistakes as well. So your test cases are not perfect. Your test cases do not guarantee good quality. Better you are, better test cases are. Still don't guarantee quality. And it's a very expensive and bulky process. Moreover, if functionality gets changed and you have, I don't know, 50 test cases covering this functionality, now you have to edit 50 test cases. So you have an extra expense called maintenance. And what are you okay, why are you okay with all this extra overhead and expense? What for? Just not remember yourself what you were doing. So now you read instead of think. Or somebody else is using. So let's say if there is no case when somebody else is using it, one of two requirements for test cases is already gone. Second requirement for test cases is a knowledge, which is important and serious thing, because you can't remember everything, you can't remember all functionality, right? So let's say if you do run a final regression test, you run all test cases and you do it once a month, so you don't remember how all pieces of functionality work. But this knowledge exists somewhere. This knowledge exists, for example, in PRD. And what you do, you partially copy and paste this PRD, but in a different format. At the end of the day, it's still a knowledge for you. And when you are familiar with your software, when you test it, when you're staying with the company not 3 days, but 6 months, 12 months, you remember your steps. It's obvious to you. What you don't remember in some situations is your expected result. So the real benefit of your test case in many cases, not 100%, in many cases, is expected result. But it exists somewhere else. So if you will find a way of creating PRD in a way that which will be useful not only for product managers, not only for developers, but for QA as well, you get all knowledge. But, so, you save time, you save money, you are way more aggressive. These are benefits. But there is obviously a flip side. You do increase risks of not reading PRD right, not finding in the right place, you are not owner of PRD, etc. So you do increase risks of making a mistake, which is a flip side. So the always question about anything in your QA approach, the question is benefits versus cost. How much benefits do you gain versus how much you can fuck up with a new approach. And if in your specific situation benefits are way better than risks that you can miss something bad goes to production, if you have especially a procedure about, bad production, plan B, then why wouldn't you want to take a risk? And the more you follow this approach, the level of risk drops because you become familiar, you train yourself, but it requires an extra effort on your side. You can't relax like, oh, okay, I have a test cases, let me click here, do this, enter this piece of data. You think all the time. Your performance is 5 times better. You get tired 10 times more. This approach is not for everybody. This approach is not good for many companies. This approach is good if, number one, you create special processes, including a very interesting process called risk management. There are three functions: risk management, two of them are risk management and change management, that should be established functions in the company. Usually they go under QA umbrella with risk management. For Bank of America, such approach is absolutely unacceptable, because their goal of release is zero risks, and time is not a variable in their release. For a quick, aggressive development approach for a startup, in most cases time is everything, number one. Number two, they are limited in resources. They simply have no time to have 3 people to write test cases for 3 months. By the time they finished, we already did 20 releases. So they can very successfully survive without test cases if they know how to manage risk. So if they have risk management established, change management established, and they have a right processes supporting missing knowledge from test cases, meaning they should have PRD written in a certain way that they are available to QA without going through 100 pages document to pull your expected result in 1 second. And after you redo this test case 10 times, you won't even need it. You will remember it eventually. So it means whatever time is spent for test cases is completely wasted. This is why I'm not a big believer. This is why I don't use it. This is why when QA people start working for me, including interns, I say there are few things I want you to do, there are few things I don't want you to do. The number one thing that is prohibited for you to do is to write test cases. And I tell them, think out of box what you can replace them with and come up with your idea. I already have my ideas, I already have my approach. I want them to think out of box. I don't want them to focus on a test case that was written 6 months ago, and in 50% of times it's not even correct because somebody else forgot to update it. Make sense? You don't have to agree with me.
I have a doubt, test cases is not always mandatory for carrying out the test. I agree that, but for reporting purpose, something goes wrong. So isn't that a valuable document
No.
where you can pinpoint,
No.
okay, we had carried this?
Why don't you use your backtracking system? Why don't you use a backtracking system for reporting of problems? Why don't you use your document that collects knowledges as a coverage what you did? Like you can report, you can say in your report, I ran 300 test cases, 297 test cases pass, 3 test cases fail, I created 3 bugs. This is your report. Report is based on data you pull from somewhere. You can pull your 300 test cases data from your PRDs if they're written in a special way, and they could be written in a user stories as a tickets, same as bugs, for example in Jira, by using Kanban, Agile, etc. There are many, many ways we can talk about it. We're out of time. So you have data to pull what you did, what you covered. You have your backtracking system to pull how many problems you found. You can create your report. If you can't, think about it, but don't use the very bulky, very expensive, and very ineffective system.
So if test cases are time consuming, if we just remove the time, the parts that take too much time to implement, then it can be a shorter version of a test case and we can manage the coverage.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Nobody says don't do it.
And where is room for automation in this process that you described?
You guys need to invite me for another 8 hours to talk about it. It's right here. All automation is right here. At one of steps. So we are out of time. I'm sorry, we are 10 minutes past. And I don't want to sound rude. I'm not going to answer any more questions. I'd like to thank you for your time and your patience. I understand that you are way more confused now than you were before, which is actually good. Because what is going to happen is when you come back to your school routine, you will forget about me on day 3, not my sweater, but me, which is okay. However, when you start working for a company, it will all come back to you. And you will have a feeling, oh, I know this, I'm familiar with this. You will not panic. And this is most important. If this happens, then my lecture today was successful.